we don't give out those grades lightly. Jay earned the top mark by voting against Social Security privatization because he knows that Wall Street is the last place we should trust our Social Security. If anyone ever had any doubts of it, just followed Wall Street for the last couple of weeks. Can you imagine if your retirement was depending on Wall Street every day? He voted against turning over Medicare to the big health companies as well. He has voted to lower the cost of prescription drugs, add new Medicare benefits for seniors, and to close the Medicare donut hole. He has always been a strong advocate for consumer rights and protections for seniors. I am honored to be able to introduce to you Congressman Jay Inslee.
And thank you for the thank you. I appreciate that. Well, this is a real treat. I am not going to be able to keep up with that song. That was a rousing. It should be part of our national anthem. And because it should be part of our national anthem, that we realize the dignity of retired people in this country. And that should be part of our national anthem. And I look at this as a family affair, not just one associated with Congress. And I want to talk about three people today whose story is pertinent. First, my grandmother, Esther Inslee. Second, Alan Greenspan. And third, Warren Buffett. And you may think, why are those three people related in this story that I consider a family story? Well, let me start with my family, which is Esther Inslee. My grandmother was a single mother, raised 4 boys during the Depression. She worked at Bartell's for 40 years, and she worked hard every single one of those 40 years. And she had some challenges during her life. I talked to my dad. He remembers sitting down to a Sunday dinner of potatoes for 4 boys and a single mom during the Depression. And I remember my grandmother, and this memory is so vivid with me, and it sort of strikes me as kind of a mystery how this happened, but about 25, 30 years ago, I was talking to my grandmother at her house. She lived by Green Lake, and she says, I want to show you something. And she went, she got me this little blue, it looked like a jewel box, a box that like a wristwatch would come in or something. And she opened it up, and it was a nice little box that had blue, like, lining in it, and inside was a pen. And she took out this pen. She said, I want to show you this pen. This is a special pen that I got from Claude Pepper. Claude Pepper, the congressman and senator who was the father of Social Security and Medicare, right there standing cheek by jowl with Roosevelt, or at least his ancestry anyway, and LBJ when Medicare started. And my grandmother told me, she said, if you ever have anything to say about it, don't let, and she was talking about Medicare, but she added Social Security, don't let the thing that lets me live in retirement, which is Medicare and Social Security, be jeopardized. Now, that was kind of funny when I think about it, because I wasn't in politics at the time. I don't know really why she told me that. Maybe, did she have a premonition? That was strange. I don't know. Maybe she could have talked me out of it if she had a premonition. But that story is the one that I wish every member of the U.S. Congress had been told by their grandmother. Because if every member of the U.S. Congress had been told that lesson by their grandmother, maybe they would have set aside these ridiculous ideas to privatize Social Security and throw senior citizens to the wolves. Maybe if these members of the Congress had been told this story by their grandmothers, they would drop this ludicrous idea of turning Medicare into a voucher system where every senior citizen would become a potential victim of the insurance industry rather than having a guarantee by Uncle Sam that they get health insurance. That's a story I wish they had been told by their grandmother. Now, fortunately, I'm here to tell you that enough of us in Congress do have this spirit of commitment to senior citizens, and I'm here to tell you we have defeated, we are defeating, and we will always defeat those callous folks who want to tell senior citizens that you can just go fish and you can be at the tender mercies of Wall Street and the insurance industry, we are going to win this battle. And we are winning this battle. So, that's my grandmother's story. And when I think, some people think of Social Security as an issue. I think of it in very personal tones when I think of my grandmother. So when you scratch me, that's what you get as a person who's committed to these programs, because it means real dignity for real people. The second person I want to allude to is Alan Greenspan. Now, Alan Greenspan for a time was seen as, this wonder worker that had all the secrets of the universe. And I will never forget when he came to Capitol Hill during the Bush administration and told us that we had to cut taxes on the super wealthy. We had to cut taxes on multimillionaires in this country, because if we didn't, we would have too much money in the federal treasury. You remember this day? I remember it very, very distinctly. George Bush had proposed that we do a giant tax cut for multimillionaires in this country. And he trundled out Alan Greenspan, who came to the U.S. Congress and told us with a straight face that we had to push and pass the Bush-era tax cuts, because if we didn't do this, we would have too much money in the federal treasury and we wouldn't know what to do with it. Now, this is what Alan Greenspan told us. And while he was saying this, I just know that George Bush was sitting in the Oval Office watching TV and just kind of chortling in that little Texas laugh he had, saying, boy, have I got those boys now.
But he spent it.
Okay? So, unfortunately, there were some people in Congress at the time who listened to that claptrap and voted for this giant tax cut for multimillionaires, and as a result, we got what I knew what was going to happen, which is a huge federal deficit. And the largest part of the federal deficit, and there are other causes, the recession, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, there are other reasons. But the one that was most self-inflicted were the Bush tax cuts. And as a result of that, how people are trying to take advantage of this deficit to do what they have always tried to do, which is to gut Social Security and Medicaid.
Exactly.
And they are trying to use the disaster that they created to try to create another disaster, which is to gut Social Security and Medicare. And I can tell you that that disaster was bad enough, we are not going to let them cause another one in this country. The third person is Warren Buffett. Now, Warren Buffett has done quite well by himself, and he's done some good things to direct capital to some business people that have done good work. And what he said the other day, in effect, although he didn't yesterday, which is not, he didn't say these exact words, but he said, look, we shouldn't be dismantling Social Security or dismantling the guarantee of Medicare. We should simply be addressing the ridiculous economic policies that blew a hole in the deficit, which included these tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy. And he basically said, I'm going to be part of this if we let these Bush-era tax cuts on the ultra-wealthy expire, but so be it. It's the right thing to do. Now, I think my grandmother and Warren Buffett, a single mother who raised 4 kids during the Depression and retired with dignity because of Social Security and Medicare, and Warren Buffett, a multi-billionaire who understands economics and has done well, both of them were right. And you and I are right in this regard. So in the next several months, we are going to be insistent that we have a balance that doesn't victimize Social Security because of the mistakes that George Bush and Alan Greenspan made. There is no senior citizen in this country who worked decades to get to a place in life where they can retire comfortably, that has this assurance right now, that should be held responsible for the sins of George Bush and Alan Greenspan. Okay? Every senior citizen is entitled to that dignity despite these mistakes that were made. Now, you've heard about this super committee.
Yeah.
Got to be one of the worst names of all time. because there's nothing super about this situation. I'm told this is so bad that the NFL is going to change the name of the Super Bowl. They don't even want to be associated with it. Of the problems that we are in. But we, all of us, need to be jointly insistent that we have a balanced approach to going forward on this. And by the way, I'll just tell you one balance that I'm committed to, too. Instead of cutting Medicare and Social Security, I think it's time to start bringing those billions of dollars home from Iraq and Afghanistan. And more importantly, much more importantly, our proud men and women who are serving there. You just read about a rash of suicides we've had at McCord Lewis base. It's in the newspaper this morning. Just, this is so heartrending. One of the young men who was involved was going to have to go on his 9th deployment.
Wow.
9th at age 25.
That's ridiculous.
Here's a 25-year-old young man who already was going to have to go on his 9th deployment. So I think it's time to now start paying a little more attention to our families here at home, and importantly our senior citizens. And I am committed to doing that, and I'm committed to a balanced approach to this problem that we have. And I look forward to working forward to you that we fulfill the admonition of my grandmother. She was right, you're right, I think I'm right. Let's go win this one. Thanks a lot.